Hello and welcome. I recently captured an event using the Insta360 Flow and, well, let's talk about it. My name is Cree and I own a marketing and video production company based out of Las Vegas. And on this channel, I talk about the tech I use for my video production services, but I also peel back the curtains and share with you exactly how I use the tech and just my feedback on whether or not it works in my workflow. And this week, I'm talking about the Insta360 Flow. This is the newest smartphone gimbal on the market. I did pair it with my iPhone 13 Pro. Now, this also works with Android. And what I really like about these gimbals and the way that companies are putting out products now is it comes pretty much with everything that you need. You can see that it already has some tripod feet here. You can connect the gimbal wirelessly to the Insta360 app, which is really nice. That it also comes with a cord, so you can attach using the cord as well. And in that app, which was very appealing to me, is you can draw a square around any type of an object. This can be a person or whatever it is, and the gimbal will automatically respond, and the gimbal will move and track that object and keep it pretty fairly in the middle of frame. So that was very intriguing. It's something that I wanted to try out in an event type environment. And for the most part, it worked out pretty well. Some other things I really enjoyed about the gimbal is that there are some dedicated buttons down here. For instance, you can change the orientation on your phone very easily. There's a dedicated record button right here on the phone. You can change the mode of the gimbal on here. There's a little joystick where you can move the gimbal around. For the modes, I didn't really see a big difference in the modes available. I'm sure you can also adjust some of these modes, but either way, I did find that having this type of functionality right in the handle for capturing an event worked very well in my favor. The setup I used for this event was my Cobra monopod. Now, I did purchase the newest iteration of their feet, which I highly recommend, but I digress. The new feet are compatible with the older Cobra monopods. I just placed the Insta360 right on top, and this was my setup for the event. Now, not only was I excited to check out the object tracking in the Insta360 app for the event, but the main reason why I like to use gimbals at events or anytime I'm moving around and have to capture footage very quickly is because it will auto level my camera. So all I had to do was set this monopod down. These feet were plenty enough and plenty wide enough to hold and make this setup stable because it is so lightweight, and it just auto leveled the camera anytime I needed it to. So that was a huge plus. And then also I did mention the dedicated buttons. It was very helpful to have those on the ready during the event. And I have to say, I don't believe I missed any of the shots that I wanted to capture while I was there. Now, the things I didn't find favorable that did not work out very well for me in an event-like environment where I'm moving around very quickly is if you look at the camera movement on this gimbal, there just is not a lot of play when it comes to moving the gimbal, up and down. So what this means is there were going to be no really cool gimbal slow motion shots at this event. I was unable to bring the camera from a high position to a low position. And so that was a bit restricting for me. Also with the pan. So this is if you're moving from right to left. And also anytime I use the joystick here to move the camera, it's super responsive. So there were a couple of times during the event where I had someone in frame. I was using a close-up shot. I barely moved the gimbal, and the responsiveness basically made it so that the object was no longer in the frame. The other thing I tried to do at the event was use the Insta360 object tracking functionality that I spoke about earlier. That was a big miss. I just did not find success with drawing a box around a person and following them through a crowd and having that box stay on the person. It actually jumped around quite a bit. And the downside was I was outside in a sunny environment, and that meant it was really hard for me to turn that box off. It's a very small little X out box in the corner. And at the end of the day, I ended up not using that functionality for the event. Here's some test footage. You can see I'm walking through the crowd. Now I have the monopod high in the air and I am being careful about walking, but not too careful. I'm pretty happy with this footage and the way it turned out. Actually, here's some shots with some pans and tilts where the person is no longer in frame because I moved the gimbal. But overall, you can see that a lot of the footage I captured during this event, I'm pretty happy with. The client was happy with it. Because of the sensitivity of this gimbal, I just found myself using more of a wide view while shooting. And at the end of the day, it did work out really well. So overall, my thoughts about this gimbal and whether or not you should buy it. As usual, it really depends on your situation. Now, in an event environment, it worked fine. Again, I wasn't able to create really dynamic shots because of the responsiveness. I was not able to use that object tracking functionality, and also just being outside in the bright sunlight. Anything that had to do with touching the screen or using the screen was a bit of a downfall. But if you are using this gimbal, like in a studio environment like this, I think the object tracking would work really well, where you just set the gimbal in one spot, you track an object, and there aren't too many other things going on in the background. I think that functionality has the potential to work well. But for events, would I use it again? I probably would. Now that I know its limitations, just like any tool, understanding the limitations is really where it's at. And the main two things that I liked about this gimbal was, one, being able to auto level the camera anytime I sat my monopod down. And number two, having the dedicated record button and the dedicated orientation button were key to me being able to successfully capture quality footage for this event. So overall, it depends on your situation. You can decide for yourself. And hey, look, if you liked this video, I invite you to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and I'll be putting out another video next week. Until then, take care, and I'll see you then.